Okay. See you later, guys. All right. So then we're going to go into the next part of it. So I'll edit that out, of course. But go ahead and share what you got.
Okay, so this is easily the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me.
All right, Josh.
um, this is around the same time that I had that prophetic experience where I went to that
Oh
prophetic
boy.
living
Okay.
conference.
Yep.
And so, obviously I had really stirred the pot,
Yeah.
naturally, paranormally, in terms of what's going on in my life. So I'm living with my folks while I'm a youth pastor at the church that my dad also works at, because as soon as I graduated from college, went down there, took over the program, and was their youth pastor for a year.
Okay.
So towards the end of that year, I was asleep and I had this dream, and it was one of those hyper vivid dreams that
Mm-hmm.
clearly means something. And I look over and I see my mom and her sister sitting in these rocking chairs, and they're
Oh
rocking
man.
back and forth. And I'm looking at them and I go, is there any way to contact the dead? Because I really missed my grandfather, I guess, in this, anyway. And they said, oh yeah. And they point over there, and they both point in the same direction. I turn and I look, and I see this arcade box, like an old Centipede arcade, or
Yeah.
to a fighter or whatever. And I see this smoke hovering on the surface of the screen. And I'm looking at it, and I immediately know there's something wrong about that. That's not smoke. And so I walk over to it, and I'm standing over it, and I'm looking at it, and I can see the screen console down below the glass, and the smoke is hovering over it. And I'm looking at it, and suddenly I start to realize, wait a minute, that's not smoke. And I see a face in it, and I
Oh
realize
no.
that's a demon.
Oh
And I
boy.
realize it's not going to be happy that I just realized that, because I'm not supposed to know that. It's
Mm.
supposed to be able to obscure itself in this dream. And I just saw through it. And sure enough, like just after I realized that, this thing leaps up off of the glass and slams into me, basically
Oh
right here,
wow.
part of my jaw and the side of
Mm-hmm.
my neck. And
Okay.
so I feel something that's kind of like a mixture of burning, like low grade burning like fire, but probably more like being electrocuted, or the feeling that you have in your arm when it's gone fully to sleep and the
Yeah.
nerve is,
Yep.
it's so asleep that it's like burning, not just tingling, but like it hurts. So I feel that on my face, and I wake up and I'm in sleep paralysis.
Oh wow.
Anybody who has ever had sleep paralysis will tell you it's the most freaking horrifying feeling you've ever felt, because you're conscious and you can't move your body. And I'm like, okay, this is okay. Okay, calm down, calm down. I understand the concept of sleep paralysis. I understand what it is. And so I fight it, and I wake up, and I sit up in bed, and I get up out of bed, and I move around the room. I'm like, okay, it's okay. This is okay. I'm fine. So at this point, I've fully woken up.
Okay.
I've gotten out of my bed. And so I lay back down in my bed, and immediately my vision goes
Oh no.
like charcoal, like static electricity on the screen. And I can feel something pressing down on my body.
Oh
So
boy.
this is not a continuation of sleep paralysis. This is not me sleep hallucinating. This is me fully conscious, fully awake, having my vision jacked with, and feeling something pushing on my body. And I feel it creep, like push up my body up towards my face. And so at this point, I'm like, all right, time to pull out the spiritual warfare playbook, rebuking this thing in the name of Jesus and all this stuff. And it gets up off of me. I can feel it lift up off of me physically.
Wow.
and I can still feel it in the room. And I'm going, what on earth is going on? Like, why won't this thing leave? Like, what is the deal? And eventually, after several minutes of just praying against this thing, it I don't know why. Don't I'm not a demon. I can't psychoanalyze it. It it takes a bunch of papers in my
Mhm.
closet and
Okay.
just flips them. Suddenly, this
Oh wow.
object, this box of papers that have been sitting in my closet for weeks, untouched, undisturbed. This is not like it settled and fell. These are sitting flat. They suddenly flip up off the ground and flip. And that's not the first time I had seen that. We had exorcised a room that some kids that had been doing Wicca in, and it this picture on the shelf went flying
Wow.
outwards across the room. Uh, and that's not even the craziest one. The other one is there was anyway. So I reviewed this thing, and it finally leaves after flipping these papers. But it was just utterly,
Jeez.
utterly horrifying being pressed down on
Yeah,
and
totally.
leave. So I'll tell you a couple more stories from
All right.
college. So college is the one of the old, it's like the third oldest continuous institution of higher learning in North America. All right, St. John's College, very old.
Okay.
People have seen ghosts down on the uh, there's the St. John's, not St. John's. There's a river that runs by the campus. People have seen old, like Confederate, not Confederate, Revolutionary era soldiers down
Oh
by the
really?
water. A
Jeez.
couple of girls who were in their room at night all together heard this disembodied voice of a man say, "Good evening, ladies," in this like weird, really outdated tone of voice,
Right. Right.
accent, and they like looked out the window and like looked down 40 feet. There's nobody out the window, right? So I don't know what to do with that, but um, my friend was asleep one night and he wakes up and there's a demon fully visibly physically present, and it's like maybe 4 feet tall, and it's sitting on his chest. It has its legs on either side of him, and it's throttling him and it's choking him, and he
Whoa.
wakes up to this and he's like, what is going on? And again, he had a pretty similar reaction to me. He didn't totally fully freak out. He just went, okay, this is happening. And so
Yeah.
he rebuked it and it left. But that same friend also woke up a couple of different mornings, at least once. I can't remember this more than once, but at least once. And he saw this angel in his room. It's just this shaft of light.
Hmm.
That's the only physical manifestation of it that he could see. But he knew exactly what it was when he looked at it. And he was like, hi, hi,
Wow.
what are you doing in my room? And it
And
said, just I'm just here to watch over you and protect you until you wake up. And then
wow, that's so crazy, dude. No
and the
history
other
of
one,
drug use or any not no like drug use or just like
no.
eyes open to the right
About a
thing.
hard, you want
Yeah.
to talk a hard edge guy. I mean,
Yeah.
this, wow,
Wow.
really just, I wish that I had the moral fiber that this man
Right.
has.
Right.
Uh, Absolutely stand up, man of
Hmm.
repute. And his brother, who is similarly so, he was in a room and he could clearly feel this demonic presence in the room. So he's like, oh, great, I got to deal with this. So he's praying against, and he's like, all right, leave. And it just, he can feel it like moving around the room and not leaving. And he's like, God, what is going on? Like, why won't this thing leave? And so finally he gets the idea, I'll just open the window. So he opens the window and he's on the fourth story of a building, and there's a squirrel on the branch outside, and he feels this thing go past him and go out
Wow.
the window, and the squirrel starts going and starts doing these furious backflips, like
No
one after the
way.
other, after the other, after the other. And he was like, okay. He just closed the window, and that's it. So I've had both I and a number of friends have had all these really overt experiences like that. While that group of friends, uh, we went to a college across the street from the Naval Academy,
Okay.
and these officers, these young men, who get into the Naval Academy have to have utterly exemplary grades,
Right.
utterly exemplary character, a recommendation from your state senator. It is no small deal to get into the
Wow.
Naval Academy. And these are guys that we knew and had been friends with for years, 2 years at that point. One of those guys, while we were on this mission trip to Panama City Beach, looks up in the sky and just sees the sky full of angels and demons with
Whoa.
swords, shields, spears, weapons, full on fighting each other. It's just full on spiritual war. And
Full on Frank Peretti novel cover style.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like Keanu
Yeah.
Reeves, Constantine level
Yeah,
stuff.
totally. Yeah.
And I know this guy. That guy makes those other two dudes that I was talking to you about
Yep.
look like they've got heroin needles hanging out
Yeah,
there.
sure.
This guy is
Wow.
so unbelievably hard edge, man of integrity, inside the box, cut corners, square corners, concrete kind of guy. So I've got all these men and women in my life who I utterly and completely trust, who have seen and experienced interhooking, interlocking things, experiences, phenomenon with me.
Hmm.
Uh, I just, the spiritual realm is real. People who have never
That's
experienced
true.
it,
It's
I
true.
don't fault them. One of the things that I always tell myself and others is there's no way you can believe what I believe, because unless you've seen what I've seen and experienced
Hmm.
what I've experienced, you can't, right? Every individual human being has the most cosmically unique worldview. No two human beings have the same worldview.
Hmm.
Yes, there are a lot of things that we have in common, but at the end of the day, it's just mind blowing to me how we can even talk to each other and use the same language when the phenomenological experience stream that has washed over us and shaped us is so unbelievably unique. Um,
Wow.
but at the same time, when you and 6 other people in your close friend group have all seen and experienced angelic and demonic and prophetic supernatural
Yeah.
experience, it's hard to argue with that, It's really hard. So what about you? What's the craziest supernatural experience you've had?
Let's see. Oh man, I don't have a lot. So
Have you ever invited it? Let me ask you, before you tell me the story, have you ever
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
went asking for this stuff. So that's
they
fine.
kind of like I'm sure it's kind of like they look at me and they're like, this guy isn't even looking, so I'm gonna move on to this other dude. Probably is what's going on. Have I had weird dreams? Yeah, sure. Uh I can I can this one's weird because I didn't write it down, so I can't tell if it's just like a weird what's it called? No, it's when your synapses fire twice in the same millisecond, and
Yeah,
you think you've experienced something before. So
sure, for sure. The
back,
deja vu thing.
yeah, deja vu. So back in 2001, so I grew up at a summer camp, and we had a chapel there, an old chapel, right, with the steeple on top and everything. And so I remember in this dream, literally, this is pre 9/11. So I'm in the field, I'm looking up at the chapel, at the steeple, and I see two planes fly into it. That's weird, right? Yeah. And it's like it's the shot that you see in 9/11, where it's the two planes flying in, right? Um, and I chalk it up to it's like because it must be some like deja vu thing where it's like I thought I experienced that prior to that because that's just too crazy, right? Um, but yeah, I definitely like I was at a conference once where this guy got up, he's telling all these stories and he's starting to get into like bringing up like, oh, and there's this demon I experienced and this is his, I'm gonna say his name, and all of a sudden it was like it was like I've never had, which I chalk to it being the Holy Spirit, but I've never had the Holy Spirit in me be before like, you need to get out of here absolutely right now. You need to get the heck out of here. And I was just like, Fram. I just like I ran out of the room,
The
and then
ladies
I
were
was
loud
like, you
in
don't
your
even need to hear
spot.
this. You need to get out of here. And then I
Yeah,
came back like half an hour later. So I don't know if that's being, that it was just very weird, right? But
I
who am
absolutely
I
I
to
agree.
argue with that? So,
There are people who are non-Christians who talk about the invitation that you extend to demonic entities when you
mm-hmm.
dabble in certain issues. You
Yep.
know, the guy, and I forgot which podcast this was, whether this was the Cliff and Bobo show or the Sasquatch Chronicles show, but the guy was talking about how he was in contact with the psychic medium who
Mm.
received all the materials for the gentleman who committed the Amityville horror murders. You know, it's a real guy. It's based
Oh,
on real
wow.
stuff. And she's talking about how when she received them, suddenly she started getting like, we're talking like way over the top, crazy over Hollywood
Yep.
cinema levels of poltergeist activity in her home
Oh,
that are
wow.
malevolent and terrible. And she's like, you want to help me write this novel or write this biography about this guy? And the guy's like, no, I don't want to do that. You just told me that
Yikes.
when you received materials and looked and read them, this happened to you. Why would I have a wife and a child? I don't want to do that. So people,
Exactly.
whether you're a Christian or not, people understand the concept of invitation and leverage and permission
Mm-hmm.
and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, and this is not a scary story, but I can tell this is the by far the best supernatural story that has ever happened to me. And this
All
is
right.
really that kicked off everything. I was 18 years old and I went to this Presbyterians for Revival youth conference thing.
Okay.
And I've been reading my Bible and I've been reading the New Testament and I've been reading all this stuff. And I keep thinking, man, God, I just feel like if you're real, you gotta be more real than the people that I've grown up going to church with are telling me you are.
Right.
I don't see any reason in the scriptures why things like the Shekinah glory or all these. And by the way, there's a gentleman who has video footage of the Shekinah glory showing up in a worship service in a part of the world where if that video went public, those people would be killed. And I know the guy.
That's pretty
And,
intense. And I'm
um,
sure
and
that's
I,
not just on the internet.
no, it's not. And
No,
it is good
it's not.
reason. He put it on the internet. The
Yeah.
people whose faces could be identified would be killed. So um,
Wow, that's intense, dude.
it is very intense. But he'll
Yeah.
let you see it. He'll let
Right.
you like stand there and look at it and watch it on a on a an old CRT screen. Anyway, so
Nice.
I'm at this conference and I've never gotten a word from God before in my life, but I show up at this conference, which is a 3-day thing, and I can tell you, I just absolutely clearly know that God says to me, I want to show you something. And I'm like,
Hmm.
cool, that's great. All right. And so every single talk that the speaker gives, I've got my notepad and my pen out and I'm taking notes and I'm listening for it. I'm waiting for that nugget. Because again, that's what Presbyterians do. They wait for a really good intellectual
Yeah,
nugget. Right?
exactly.
That's it. And I get to the very last talk of the last day, and it still hasn't happened. I get to the end of the talk, and I'm just like, that was all great stuff, but I just know it still hasn't happened. And I went, all right, Lord, I'm not worried. I know that until I leave this place, you can still say something to me.
Right.
So I go to bed that night and I wake up the next morning and I go, all right, well, I'll just go have my quiet time. And so I go to the prayer room, the place where people have been praying for the last 72 hours straight. You're not
Okay.
allowed to set foot in this room unless it is to be praying. This
That's
is probably
awesome.
one of the most consecrated, sacred, holy places I've ever been in my life. Unintentionally, I just kind of wandered over there. And so there was nobody in the prayer room, nobody doing it. Everybody's packing their stuff and getting into their vans and leaving. There's just this gal who is faithfully guarding the prayer room, keeping people from setting
Hmm.
inappropriately.
That's
And I
awesome.
said, hey, I don't have an appointment. Can I just have my quiet time in here? And she looks around and goes, there's nobody here. The room's yours. She leaves. So I
Wow.
whip out my notebook and I start praying, and I can just boom, feel God's presence filling this place in a way that I've never felt it before. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing and I'm just talking to him, journaling. And when I get to the word, and I'm just telling him, you are, good and you are loving. And when I get to the word faithful, all I can tell you is that it was like my whole life I had been strapped to a chair, fully paralyzed, not aware that I had a body, and I was looking at a two-dimensional screen. And suddenly, for the first time, somebody took my cheek and pushed my head
Wow.
sideways, and I saw a three-dimensional object for the first time. Because the reality, not the concept, like the full beyond this reality knowledge that God is faithful just got pierced through my brain and my consciousness and my being with a weightiness beyond anything I'd ever experienced. And I literally passed out. I don't remember
Wow.
passing out. I just remember opening my eyes and my head is on the page. And there's, a couple of tear stains on the page. And I'm like, okay, that was crazy. That was, and I'm perfectly fine. I'm not addled. I'm not, I don't have any kind of problem with my ability to comprehend reality or have self control. I'm not manic. I've got ADD, but that's it, right? I don't have
Mm-hmm.
any kind of family history of schizophrenia or, manic depressive or delusion or anything like that. And so, I haven't had anything like that ever since. So, um, two more times this happens where I continue to pray and I can feel the presence of God getting heavier and heavier. And it gets terrifying because I
Wow.
realize with certainty, with 100% certainty, if I stay in this room, I will die. Period. It's just,
Wow.
you throw yourself off a cliff, you're going to smash the bottom. If I stay in
Mm-hmm.
this, I'm just going to get scoured out of existence. And so I remember,
Yeah.
I remember writing, God, this is, thank you. This is what I've been asking you for a while, for you to like fill up. And I appreciate it, but I have got to go. I like jumped up and ran out the room. And I like ran over to this girl that I had a crush on all, that whole trip. And I had met her the year
Yeah. Yeah.
previous. And I ran up to her and I just started blathering a mile a minute. She's like, Josh, I believe you. I don't think anybody else is going to understand. Maybe just like take this one
Yeah.
under your hat and sit on it. So for me, that was really what kind of kicked it off, was being this 18-year-old kid who was raised incredibly religious and believed in God. It wasn't empty religion. I really did
Mm-hmm.
believe in God. I loved him. But I just had this deep dissatisfaction with the
Hmm.
message that was being broadcast to me
Yep.
of
Yep.
what God is a theoretical entity that you owe a great deal to, and you should believe that he could do anything, but you need to be okay with him not really doing anything particularly special in
He
your
he
life or
used to
other.
do stuff, but he doesn't really do it anymore.
And
And all
and
that
just
stuff in China that he's doing isn't real.
yeah, and
Yeah.
again, my bullshit meters were just going off the charts when I would hear
Yep.
those things. And after that happened to me, I think everything else that's happened since then has just been kind of a domino effect.
Yeah.
Again,
Wow.
that's why when people say I don't believe in God, I go, I get it, man. I mean, I get it. I really do. And I'm not saying that patronizingly or condescendingly. If you had seen what I've seen, you would. And
Mm-hmm.
clearly you haven't. So all I can do is hope and pray that you do find what you're uh, looking for. So whether you believe what I believe or not, I always hope that people are spiritually
That's
and
awesome.
intellectually hungry and are willing. Yeah, because that's what Scripture says, and every other major world religion that's worth following says is, if you are hungry and seeking, you will find. And so, for
That is
people
true.
who are
Yep.
looking for Bigfoot, looking for God, whatever, if you can do the work and be hungry and put yourself out there, I really do believe that there is truth to be found. So I
That's
hope people
awesome.
watching your
Oh man, Josh, this has been fun. Thank you so much.
podcast.
I'm
Thank
glad that that you approached me to come on the podcast because I, never would have thought. I mean, but I'm so glad that you took the initiative to come on. Thank you.
Well, thank you for
It's
putting
been
the
fun.
post on
It's been
Instagram
fun.
saying
Yep.
if you hubristic enough to think that you've got a story worth telling. So,
But it's been fun. I will definitely be checking out the D&D podcast. That sounds like a fun time. I'll
it
check
is.
that out.
My buddy is a great author and a
Awesome.
good writer. So he's
All
it
right.
brought a lot to it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on again. We will be I can see us keeping in touch and we'll have to
Absolutely.
chat again sometime in the future. But thanks again, Josh. Have a good
Sounds
night.
good. Good night, man. Catch you later.
Yep.
Bye.